this video I will continue working on the thumbnails from the previous episode. This time I will pick my favorite ones and clean them up in terms of composition, make them more readable. Before we start, I like to begin with a warm-up sketch. What I like to do as a warm-up sketch is copy a composition of an existing movie or series. This time I will copy this composition from the movie The Hobbit. You have a couple of sites where you can find stills from movies and series. So let me show you a couple of them. What we have over here is a site called Film Grab. You can cycle through different films here. You click on it and then select different stills from different chapters throughout the movie. You can select films by year, by their name, even by aspect ratio. Another site is stills from beautiful films. Bit the same here, so you get to see different movies. You can select one and copy it. And then the last one, film captures. You can also select by date. And you get a lot of movies where you can pick from. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open this file, or I drag and drop it in a new file here. I'll make it a bit smaller. And basically right now I'm not going to focus on colors. What I like to do is get the frame right to start with. And then get the big shapes in place. So let's start. First of all, you have to really look closely to the frame that you have here. You have to compare the height with the width. I think everyone can see that the height here is smaller than the width. Right now you have to decide how many times the height can fit in the width. Obviously in Photoshop what you can do is make a mark like I just did and copy it a couple of times to get the exact measurements. What you can do if you don't work in Photoshop and you just work on paper is maybe hold your pencil in one hand, stretch your arm, and then measure the height using your pencil. Then compare the same dimension, so the height with the width. I'll do it a bit on site here, so I'll get the height. You can do is always draw some quarter of a circle on it. So this would be a length of the height, probably another one over here, and then maybe half. I want to get the same thing over here. So I guess this is a square. Let's add another one. You can also use the copying technique. So you get the diagonals here. You get the middle point, and basically you copy it in perspective like this. And then we had like 1/2 left over here. So I guess this would be our frame to start with. So let's clean it up a bit. Then I like to start indicating some kind of horizon line where I can base myself on. So here I guess horizon line would be somewhere over here, maybe a bit higher. So let's see. This would be the middle of the image. So the horizon line is a bit lower in the frame here. Another thing you can do is think of composition rules like the rule of thirds. And basically the rule of thirds is going to divide your height and width in 3 equal parts. So if I have my height here, this will be 1 part, second 1 and 3. So 1, 2, 3. I'll do the same thing here. So 1, 2, and 3. And same thing over here. One, 2, 3. A bit like this. It's not exactly correct, so I think this line should be a bit higher. So you get intersecting points here, 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 and here. What you can do in Photoshop, if you want to have it exactly correct, is use the crop tool. Next to the straighten and cock icon, you have another icon like a grid. If you select it, you can select different grids that you can overlay when cropping an image. I like to select rule of thirds. You will see with the crop tool selected, if you click on your image, you get the rule of thirds applied on the image here. So I'm going to cancel. I'm going back to my image. I can also apply the rule of thirds here. Again, this is a warm-up sketch, so I don't have to be that precise with it. Just try to get 9 equal sized rectangles and then you will do fine. So right now I'm going to focus on the bigger shapes. I have a big part of a tree over here. And when you start, you can choose. You can start with line art, like I'm doing, or you can just work with values. So for example, this is the tree here. Let's use around pen pressure. So we just block it in. And basically I'm going to give everything a value already, because we don't really have a lot of bright values in this composition here. So probably you want to darken everything. I have the figure in the foreground. So normally I would do those warm sketches on paper using a pen or marker or pencils, but I guess this time it's a bit easier to show you guys by using Photoshop. Basically it's the same techniques I'm using here. This body of water here is darker, so let's make it dark. And then we have a dark shape over here, right hand corner, and some darker shapes in the back. What you can do over here is instead of drawing the character is basically draw the negative shape, like this triangle over here. And when you draw the negative shape, you also get the character or the object around it, correct? So I guess this guy over here should be a bit more to the left to make it exactly correct. If I look at the reference picture, but then again, I think it's a Warmup sketch. Don't really bother fixing it. If I get the pose correct, it doesn't really matter if he's more to the left or right. This is straight. A bit like that, I guess. So here we still can define the leaves on the tree if you want. Add some more gradation. First it gets a bit darker, and then because of the mist it gets a bit lighter. Notice that over here in the background we almost don't have any details. It's like almost one value. It's further away. There are layers of mist in front of it. Add some texture of the rocks here just by hinting it. So I don't want the exact texture of the rock over here, I just want to hint it a bit so I get some variety going on. And if you're finished, you can clean it up a bit, add a darker border around it, frame it, reframe it. Yes. Okay, so everything over here can be a bit darker. So what you should do if you want to see the values is squint your eyes a bit and really look at a value shapes like bigger masses. So if I would squint my eyes here, I would notice that this mass together with this one and maybe this one is basically like almost one shape. So that's something you want to have in your composition or value sketch also. Like basically I would blend every value here a bit so it reads better. That's one thing. Yes. So I think we spent enough time on this one. What you can do is make another one if you want to warm up a bit more. Check out the sites I just showed you. You can choose whatever still you want to use. That's up to you. Okay, so I think we are warmed up. And then we can continue working on our thumbnails. It has been 1 week now since I've last seen my thumbnails here, so I still hope I'll know what I wanted to show with the thumbnails. As you can see here, I indicate my favorite thumbnails with a darker band or a darker frame around it, but I think we still have enough room to improve the composition here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick my favorite thumbnails, open them in a new, or paste them in a new document, and have a look at the composition. So with the marquee tool, I'm going to select my favorite ones, copy, and paste them in a new document. So I have a couple of favorite ones here. Those two belong to each other. It's like the same story. And that's the thing probably I'll do right now, is I'll work a bit further on the favorite ones, maybe have another look at the angle, at the point of view, and at a point I will realize, okay, this won't work or this will work, and the ones that won't work I'll just delete, and in the end we will end up with a favorite one final thumbnail we can use. So let me rearrange them a bit. I think I've got every thumbnail here. Basically those three belong or like dictate the same story. So those three thumbnails here, if you still remember, I had some kind of wagon with a baby dragon in it, and then we had the bigger mother dragon trying to rescue it, attacking those people over here. Maybe those guys are artists, circus artists or something. Maybe you have some guys who are armed. So that's one story. This one was about, I think, sky pirates on top of a dragon, just being very cruel to the birds over here, and probably they are going to attack a fairy tale castle in the mid background here. Then this one was just a dragon, I guess, so I'll probably delete this one. I kind of like the angle here, but story wise don't really like it, so I'll delete this one. That was easy. And then this one also kind of light. So what I had over here is like a dragon in the foreground, breathing fire, with a druid or something on top of it controlling the dragon, and then we had two more dragons. Probably I'll push them a bit more in the background, try to get some kind of implied lines, guiding lines going on, to show a bit more depth. But also like this one. Let's see. Let's start with this one here. So I'll hide, give them a color, and I'll hide them. And these three again. Alright. And then we have this one over here. Okay, so this is my thumbnail I'm going to work with. First I'll clean it up a bit and probably draw different versions maybe, or make changes to it to get a better composition going on. I took the liberty to indicate some basic composition rules or terms you should keep in mind. So maybe let's go through them very quickly first. And then have a look at this composition here, or this thumbnail. So what we have over here at the first term, emphasis, is basically a focus point. So this is all about, do I have a focus point in my image here. So I was thinking for this thumbnail of this guy in riding the dragon here. Probably they're this kind of evil dragon, and maybe it would be cool to have like a burning castle somewhere in the background down below. So they just attacked the castle, killed everyone, and they are finding their next victim, something like that. So that will be my focus point here. This guy, and the bad guy, and then probably the castle as a secondary, and the dragons as a third focus point. Then rhythm, repetition is basically, do you have enough repetition? But repetition in the thumbnail or in your image, but repetition can be a repetition of shapes, can be repetition of, for example, the dragon here to show that. So most of the times it's a good idea to copy or repeat objects at least twice in your composition. Then balance. So balance is all about having a nice distribution through your composition or in your composition. What I want to do here, if I relate it to my composition over down below, I have a dragon over here to the left side, dragon, the guy on it. So this will be a focus point, you know, or darker shape, a detailed shape. So what I want to do is like counterbalance this way to the left. Yeah, I want to counterbalance it to the right here. So probably what I'm going to do is maybe add the castle over here and indicate the two other dragons down below over here to counterweight or to counterbalance this weight. If I would put everything on the left side and leave the right side open, and maybe have like one small detail going on, like I would add a dragon here and another one here and maybe the castle over here, it would be very heavy on one side and giving a very uneasy feeling to the viewer. So that's balance, and make sure everything is balanced enough that you have a nice distribution of shapes throughout your composition. The next thing I have over here is implied lines, shapes. What I mean with implied lines and shapes are lines or shapes that direct the viewer through the painting and put, for example, more focus on the focus point. Let me show you an example of an implied line. What we can have is, if you have, for example, a guy over here with a sword in his hand and it points upwards. What we get over here just by drawing this movement is an implied line, and the eye or the viewer's eye look at this guy and they notice that this guy at the knight has his arm lifted with a sword. So what we do is basically we look at the sword here and just follow this direction, looking upwards. So then what you can do is, for example, put a focus point over here, whatever. It can be moon, can be dragon again, like this. So this would be an implied line. If we would bend, for example, the wings of the dragon here, going inwards, again we get implied lines. So you follow the movement, the downwards movement of the wings, going back to the knight over here. And this is a nice way to keep the viewer's eyes inside the composition. If we would put the wings like this, for example, what would happen is that you look at this knight first, you follow this line through the sword to the dragon, and then you look at the wings over here and you're somewhere outside of the composition. So it's a very powerful tool to keep track of it. Next one is breathing space. Breathing space is all about giving some room, some breathing space, as we call it, for the focus point. We need over here, for example, if this is The dragon is the focus point. What we need over here is some breathing space around it. I give the focus point some breathing space, some area around it. Breathing space also applies at objects that are in movement. For example, if you have a car, for example, over here. Let's see, like this, okay, and it goes in this direction. Yeah, what you need to have over here is also breathing space. If you don't have the breathing space here and you just crop it like this, yeah, you will give a very uneasy feeling to the viewer. So what you should do over here is extend the frame a bit to give this focus point some breathing space. Please note that sometimes going against these rules over here can also work. Maybe you want to give the viewer a very uneasy feeling and you want to crop it over here, then it can work. But I think if you're just starting out working with composition or thinking about composition, it's a very good idea to stick with those terms here, those rules, just to make sure you don't make common mistakes against it. And once you're very skilled in composition and have more knowledge about it, then feel free to break those rules. That's not a problem. Tangents is the next thing here, is basically what we don't want to see, or what you should try to avoid is having fused edges of different objects, for example, or objects that just touch with each other. So for example, if you have a house over here, yeah, and then we would have a light pole over here like this would be a tangent. Now, we have over here is right now we have the shape of the roof, yeah, and then we have this line indicating the wall structure or the front face of the building, but this line is fused with the line of the light pole. So what we have over here is basically fused objects. Even worse would be if we extend this roof a bit further, and we'd get something like this. So this top part, or this line here of the light pole, just touching the edge of our roof over here. Yeah. Again, it kills depth. Now what we should do is have some overlap going on. So we can still draw the house over here. We have the house with the roof. What we should do is have some overlap going on. And then you show a lot of depth just by overlapping your shapes. Depth is the next term. Depth is basically what you want to have is a foreground, a midground, and a background. This again, if you go for fore, mid, and background, will show a lot of depth, a 3D feeling, and it makes sure that your compositions aren't flat. And one way to create depth is using a fore, mid, and background, but also overlap, which you can find over here. Overlap. Economy is basically complex versus simple. So detailed versus less detailed. What you don't want to do, and like in this image, what I should avoid is over detail everything. What I'm going to do is probably detail the focus point, so the viewer's eyes gets attracted by the smaller shapes, the smaller details in it, the smaller value shifts, and then everything around it I'll leave less detail and more simple, so the eyes have some place to rest. What you don't want to have is a very busy piece overall. What you want to have is more details on the focus points and resting places for the viewer's eyes throughout the whole piece. And then the final point, what I have over here, is contrast, variety. What I mean with contrast is, and it applies a bit again to focus point or emphasis, is do you have or do I have enough contrast where I need it? So probably I want to have contrast again in shapes, again repetition and shapes, contrast in shapes. Do I have enough variety of different shapes? Maybe you can have more angular shapes and then rounded shapes around it, and to have contrast again. And maybe the castle over here is a fairy tale castle where everything is more rounded and less aggressive looking. And then the dragons over here have very pointy shapes, sharp shapes, to counterbalance it a bit. So again, balance. Balance is not only in terms of dividing your composition, but balance in shapes, contrast, those things. But contrast can also apply on values, of course. So maybe this dragon over here is quite dark. The local value can be quite dark, and then everything around it is quite light to show some contrast, so it pops out, so I create focus. If I would put the background over here dark, now you will notice that the dragon over here just disappears in the background. So then if I look at the thumbnail here, the focus would be on this dragon because it's dark on light. And then another point which we saw already in the composition or the warm-up sketches is basically the rule of thirds. What I like to do, so I'll put it over here, rule of thirds. What I like to do is make sure that my focus point is somewhere around those intersecting points. So what you would get if you divide your frame, the height and the width here, in 3 equal parts, you would get 4 intersecting points. And most of the time, again, rules can be broken, but if you just started out with composition, follow the rules here. Most of the time, it's a good idea to put your focus point around one of those points over here. It doesn't have to be exactly on that point. Just put it around this point somewhere. Yeah, and basically, it's going to prevent you from putting your focus point, for example, in a corner or just in half over here, or straight in the middle. So the rule of thirds is going to make sure you have a nice balance, that you have enough breathing space around your focus point, that you don't put your focus point in corners, those things. So use it. Rule of thirds, contrast, economy, depth, tangents. So watch out, don't use tangents, and watch out for tangents. Breathing space, implied line shapes, balance, rhythm, repetition, and emphasis. Let's have a look how you can improve this composition right now. I'll get rid of the notes. Downscale everything over here. So I'll leave it in my document just to make sure I don't forget about them. I'll make this one a bit bigger. So this is still a sketch, right? I'm not really worrying about the dimensions right now in terms of quality. Of course, I'm worrying about getting the right frame and composition, but about the quality. What I would do later on is probably start with a new file or upscale it again. But right now I'm not really worrying about the quality. It's still a sketch. So let's zoom out a bit. I also have my thumbnail or the navigator palette over here, so I can see my version, my sketch as a thumbnail. So I'll keep an eye on my thumbnail also. Probably what I want to do is indicate the rule of thirds first. So a nice way of dividing a line or a frame in 3 parts is first is you find the middle, by drawing diagonals. So this would be the middle point. Yeah. Then so basically you get two halves, so A and B. Right now what I want to do is find or draw the diagonals of B here. And then I get 1 and 2 intersecting points. I'll do the same thing with A. So I get the intersecting points with the diagonals of the main frame here, the bigger frame. Once I get those diagonals, basically I have my 4 points indicating and the rule of thirds. So if I connect those points up and down, I get the rule of thirds. So these would be my intersecting points where I want to put my focus point around or on. So I'll clean it up a bit, lower the opacity, and draw the grid on a new layer so I can keep track of it like this. Okay, so I'll name it rule 3. Lock it and the movement and then the paint lock and lower the opacity back. So this is my layer here. Most of the time it's a nice idea to make a copy, a backup. I also have a backup over here. I'll group those sketches and then I'm ready to go. So first thing is emphasis, a focus point. I want to decide what my focus point is going to be. I was thinking of having this big dragon here in the foreground, bit coming towards us with this guy on top of it, and then having similar dragons, maybe with or without people on it, and in the background. So I'll take this bigger shape of the dragon, copy and paste it, and let's see, maybe I want to downscale it a bit to give some breathing space here, like this. Reframe it a bit. Okay. I'll merge those again. Those dragons, or especially this one, I'm not really fond of it. And this one, but I'll paint them again later on. Let's see. So maybe this is like more top view. So the horizon line is somewhere outside of the frame. I would get some perspective grid going on. And maybe you have like the castle over here, down below, and a very thin castle. So again, I'm not really looking at references right now. I just know I want a castle over here, and then later on, once I would. If I would pick this image here, then I would have a look at reference images to get the setting and everything around it correct. Right now I'm not really sure if I would go for this one, so I don't want to lose time finding reference for something I'm not going to use in the end. So let's go over here. Dragon, it's burning. It's like everything, like the smoke, even the smoke can be some kind of implied shapes or shape directing and to the focus point again. Or the smoke can put everything over here in shadow with the dark value. So really at this point you have to think about like every stroke you're going to make. And most of the times the less strokes, the better. And the less strokes to define something, the better it will look. The simpler, the easy to read, and more easy to read. And that's nice. So I'm not sure about this castle yet, but I'll leave it for now. I still want to add some dragons over here, like I have one over here, maybe. Still not sure about it. In here. So I guess right now I don't really like it. The castle and dragons here don't really fit together with this one. So I'll just toss it aside here. I'll put it over here. And that's why it's very handy to have a backup. So I'll pick this back up and restart. Give this guy some more space here. Maybe it would be cool to have the horizon in the frame here. And so like the sun is setting. It's getting dark, so those evil guys here come out to play with the rest of the world, destroying things. So we have like a sunset here. And so I want to extend the frame a bit. To show a bit more of this dragon over here and the environment around it. So I'll extend everything a bit up. Make this dragon a bit darker here, foreground. Again, not really sure about it. We'll see. I'll spend some more time on it. Smaller dragon here. But I don't really like it because it doesn't really show a lot of depth. And this one is really blocking everything in this image. I'm not sure if I would crop it. It would help. No, I'm not really feeling it. So we'll delete this one. So right now I guess it's not much to say here. I'm trying different compositions, and basically I'm thinking about all those things a bit. I think the most important right now are the emphasis, what is the focus point, depth. You want to have, we want to show some depth, or create depth with overlap, but also like rhythm and repetition of shapes here at the dragon or the dragons. Things like economy and tangents, those things I guess are right now less important and more important and at the more refining stage. Maybe you can make it more dynamic by tilting the horizon line a bit. So the horizon line would be over here. So here we have again added tangent a bit. So this eye part or this structure over here, this shape just touches with the horizon line. So what you want to do is have or extend it a bit so it overlaps, so you get depth. Let's hide this one for a moment. What you can do is always flip the canvas from time to time to get another point of view on the composition. And what I miss over here, so right now you see those guys and they go in this direction, so what I need over here I think is some kind of guiding line, light line directing back, and maybe to a secondary or third focus point. That can be a wing, for example, like this. Like this guy is like rotating and like one part of the wing disappears in some clouds. It reminds me a bit of this one over here, so I'll probably go in that direction. So still not sure about it, but okay. Two bit more refined sketches here. I still have the other ones to look at, so maybe this one. So here I have the thumbnails a bit more refined. Probably I'll make a selection of my favorite ones, put them together in one file, and then clean them up a bit more. So right now I have 3 favorite ones selected, and the ones with the darker border frame around it. What I like about this one here is the half shadow and half light throughout the piece. So it basically divides my frame here, the darker part, lighter part. Also like the perspective angle, and so like you look down on the scene here. And what we see here is the cast shadow of the dragon sneaking upon those guys over here. You have a diagonal line over here, and basically one over here of the people. Maybe it's not that interesting to put like the exact middle in the middle of the frame here, so maybe that's something I want to change later on. What I like about this one here, and I think this will be my favorite one for now, is the action in the scene. So we have the angle or the curve, the movement of the dragon here, spitting fire just for fun. Then this guy is burning some birds. We get the inverse movement of those birds over here. Then we have this pirate pointing at the castle. Maybe what I want to do here is reconsider the position of the castle and the spitting fire here, just to make sure it's more readable. Maybe I can have the fire more over here, and then like only the upper part of the castle visible. Nice detail here is like the guy falling off the dragon. And I think in this angle it's also a bit more clear to show what's going on with the pirates on top of the dragon, how they constructed everything around the dragon. And then this is my third favorite. Not really sure about this composition yet, the way I see it over here, but I kind of like the idea behind it, so I'll probably give it another try. So on this page I have every favorite thumbnail a bit bigger on a separate layer. This one, and this one. So I have my background, and also have a darker border around it. I've put those images next to each other, so it will allow me to spend some time on the one to the right here, for example. We're gonna define it a bit more, so it's more readable, more presentable, to show to an art director, for example. And I'll work around maybe 10 minutes on this one, and then go to the other one, and then to the other one, and then basically cycle around until I like them, and they are at a stage that I can present them to someone, so they can have a look and give their opinion. So I can work further on it. So it will allow me, because I have all the images next to each other, it will allow me, or it will make sure that I don't over detail a piece and then spend like 30 minutes on it and then realize, okay, I still have to do the other two. So it's a nice way of working. I would try to implement in your own pipeline. right now I have my 3 sketches more refined, so I can show them, for example, to an art director or someone else to get feedback on it. It would be great if you could refine your favorite thumbnails a bit more. So maybe next week we can look more at the value structures or even put some color on top of it. Feel free to post your results on the weekly challenge Facebook group if you want. Thank you for watching.